Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Thursday, September 13th. This is Gina Palma. Over the next several days, the main impacts to the Great Basin will be the strong and gusty winds out ahead of a couple of cold fronts moving through the Great Basin. Most of the stronger winds will impact Utah and Nevada, but we will have some breezy winds up across Idaho. However, it's across Nevada and Utah where relative humidity will be in the single digits to low teens for several days, and overnight recoveries will be poor, with wind also keeping up, especially in the mid and high elevations during the nighttime hours. We'll have some cooler air, but still dry for the most part up across Idaho. We may see some showers move across today, and then again at times over the weekend, but any precipitation will be very light. We will see some fairly cool temperatures behind this front over the northern half of the Great Basin. Some areas will drop down to near or below freezing at night in the higher elevations, and very cool temperatures during the day. If we look at the last 24 hours, we've had only light precipitation across the Great Basin, but really mostly cloud cover and no lightning. Light initial attack occurred yesterday across the Great Basin. Over the last 1 to 2 weeks, precipitation has been confined to the far south for the most part, and any precipitation has been well below normal, with very dry conditions over the last 2 weeks across the northern half of the area. Therefore, ERCs are still between the 80th and 90th percentile, with many areas above the 97th percentile over the northern half of the Great Basin, especially across northern Nevada and northern Utah. This is very unusual for the time of year. Looking at some of our individual fuel charts, up across central Idaho, ERCs did come down with fronts that moved through earlier over the last few weeks, however have rebounded and are still well above normal for the time of year, despite the cooler temperatures that moved in yesterday. Over the rest of western and northern Nevada and northern Utah, this graph on the bottom right is fairly representative, with ERCs above historical maximums for the time of year. The satellite loop from this morning shows the trough of low pressure confined to the northwest coast, with the cold front that moved through the northern half of the Great Basin, and we do have some cloud cover, or a band of cloud cover, over the northern half of Nevada up into Idaho. Also of note is Hurricane Florence that is barreling towards the east coast. This will impact the Carolina area especially over the next several days, and will not be an impact to our weather directly here in the Great Basin, but it certainly will impact our resources. Looking at the smoke dispersion forecast for the next couple of days, smoke dispersion will be quite good due to the strong and gusty winds across many areas of the Great Basin. However, near and downwind of many of our larger fires, still we'll see some impacts from the smoke, but it won't be overly widespread. Looking at the weather pattern for later today, again the cold front is sweeping through the northern half of the Great Basin with much cooler temperatures over northern areas and higher humidity across Idaho, along with a band of cloud cover over Idaho back into northern Nevada. Winds will still be breezy today across Idaho, but relative humidity will be between 15 and 20%. However, further south is where those very strong wind gusts with low relative humidity will continue across Utah and Nevada, and you can see where the areas of high risk are. Looking at our weather conditions, relative humidity will change little from yesterday across Nevada and Utah, with relative humidity in the single digits to low teens, however will increase across Idaho. Looking at the wind gust image on the right, you can see the strongest wind gusts today will be across Utah into southern and eastern Nevada, where wind gusts will exceed 45 miles per hour again today with those dry conditions. Along the Sierra front, winds won't be quite as breezy as yesterday, but still wind gusts around 30 to 35 miles per hour are likely. Looking into Friday, that first front moves off to the east, but we still have a trough of low pressure along the west coast, keeping breezy winds across the area and a fairly widespread area of high risk for those gusty winds and dry conditions on Friday. Relative humidity on Friday again changes very little across Nevada and Utah, but will actually start to decrease again across Idaho as that dry air behind the front moves in place. Wind gusts very similar to today across Utah and Nevada, where wind gusts will exceed 35 or 40 miles per hour at times, and along the Sierra front with wind gusts around 30 miles per hour as well. Wind gusts will not be quite as strong up across Idaho. On Saturday, that trough moves a little bit closer to the northwest coast, and we see some showers moving across Idaho and the northern areas of the Great Basin, but still very dry conditions continue further south, with again gusty winds in place across most of the area. On Saturday, you can see the changes in relative humidity, with a little bit higher relative humidity in some areas across the higher terrain of Utah, however still very dry in the lower elevations, and relative humidity about 15 to 20% up north across Idaho. The wind gusts on Saturday will actually strengthen over western Utah into eastern Nevada and over northwest Nevada, where we could see wind gusts in excess of 45 or 50 miles per hour, and especially over the peaks, we could see gusts above 60 miles per hour. So very strong winds in place for areas of Utah and Nevada on Saturday. And again, that's where our main concern for high risk will be with those dry conditions. The overall forecast amount of precipitation, just some showers with each of the fronts that moves across Idaho, but nothing overly strong, so we're not looking for any significant precipitation amounts. However, looking on the East Coast, obviously this impact from Florence will not impact our weather directly, but certainly will impact our resources with a significant amount of rainfall moving in with Florence, as you can see on the far East Coast. As we go through the weekend, on Sunday we have that cold front that sweeps across the north again. Therefore, we'll continue with very dry conditions and gusty winds over southern areas of the Great Basin on Sunday, and we have continued that high risk. As we move into Monday, this trough moves off to the east, still very dry air in place, but winds will start to decrease across the Great Basin with no high risk issued. However, for the third week of September, we have quite a bit of dry air in place, so most of our areas in the Great Basin are in the brown, which is unusual for this time of year. Looking at Tuesday, again, we have a front moving across the north, still very dry conditions. Winds will probably be breezy with only some clouds up into central Idaho. On Wednesday, we start to see this ridge off the west coast, so we will see winds decrease, but again, still dry air in place, and temperatures will start to rebound. Forecast amount of precipitation has not changed much, just with some very light precipitation across Idaho over the next 7 days. Looking at the 8 to 14 day outlook, taking us into the third week of September, above normal temperatures in most area, and continue with that dry signature in the west. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.